My name's Lydia Nicholson. I am a theatre maker and I work in museum public programming as well, and I try to bring all of my theatre work into the museum because I'd like to be able to focus on theatre in a museum context, if that makes sense. So that's using the museum's venue and objects as provocations for theatre. It's one of those funny things. My parents are both from Sydney, and when I was little we moved down to Adelaide, and so I feel like I'm from Adelaide, but then all of my extended family and my roots are kind of back here. And I suppose it's one of those things, like I love Adelaide and we've got a really thriving, growing arts community, particularly sort of a really strong emerging independent arts scene, but there just isn't the same kind of work opportunities back there as there are in Sydney. And so it's one of those things, you move to Sydney, there are more actors and more writers, but there's also more gigs for them. I'd like to, I go back to Adelaide quite a bit for work, and I have ties with a lot of companies back there. So yeah, it was a good move work-wise, but I'd like to be able to keep working in Adelaide and keep fostering that community because it is really strong. It's really hard. It's really hard because so much of your work you're waiting for somebody else to offer you something, and that's horrible because then you get stuck in these modes where you're just waiting and waiting for somebody to validate you and validate your work somehow, which is a really unhealthy way of being, and you get weird mindsets. I remember a friend of mine, she'd always wanted to cut her hair really short, and she finally decided she was going to do it because all of this time she'd been thinking, no, I have to keep long hair so I can stay versatile. If I cut my hair short, I won't be versatile anymore. And she realised, that's really dumb, because nobody's casting me for anything because of my hair. They're going to cast me for something because I'm the right performer for it. And if I look right for, being myself, that's what they'll want. But it's quite easy to get sucked into those little mind games where you try to be something that you think they want you to be, without realising that they just want you to be what you are, and if that's right for the part, then that's right for the part, and if it's not, it's not. Maybe the most terrifying thing I've ever done, because I don't really get scared performing, but I hadn't realised until maybe half an hour before the show how scary it would be performing my own writing completely by myself. I didn't have a director down there with me or anything. I had the tech that I'd met that day who was doing my tech, and luckily he was really nice so I could chat to him. But it was such a good lesson in I guess looking after myself, or finding, I don't know what it is, finding that kind of strength in yourself to carry through with something that is insanely scary, and then coming out the other side of that and being able to look back at it and think like, oh cool, I did that. And I did, I had all these people helping me, but for that really scary bit in the middle, I just did that all by myself, and I'm really proud of that. So it's a project that I've been talking about for ages with a really good friend of mine back in Adelaide, where we're really interested in women on the home front in Australia. And we've been talking about it for years and years, and then we kept saying we need to do this year, we need to make this show. And then we realised that next year's 2014, and it's the centenary of the First World War, and so when better time to actually get our act together and do this show than do it next year. And so we've decided to focus just on World War I, because in our research we're kind of realising that people don't talk about women in World War I at all. Like all of the things that you think of with the home front, the rationing, the Women's Land Army, the munitions factories, that's all World War II for Australia. People don't really have much of a concept at all of what women did during World War I, how they contributed, how they weren't able to contribute in a lot of ways. And I think we feel quite uncomfortable as a nation in talking about the restrictions and the obstacles that women faced at that time that actually prevented them from being more active in the war effort. And so we're doing a lot of research at the moment, and we've got a season locked in next year. It's for high school audiences and focusing specifically on women and trying to get young people to think about how we talk about history and how we need to make sure that we value women's experiences as much as we value men's. That's a good question because it's hard. Like we want to, in order for teachers to book it, we want it to link up with different parts of the national curriculum and be educational. But what we most want to do is make these women like real and engaging and relatable people. And I think that's one of the best things about theatre, is you sit in this dark auditorium and watch these people on stage, and they can say things or do things that might speak really directly to you, but because you're in an audience and nobody's really looking at you, you can feel, feel free to feel those things and to relate to what's happening on stage, and not feel vulnerable or not feel like everybody knows you're thinking, oh, I do that too. Oh, that's exactly how I feel. And so I think if we can manage to write these women that we're going to be talking about as really accessible, relatable young people, that young people in the audience can see inside them and think, oh, that's how they feel, that's how I feel, and feel a kind of a kinship with them. I definitely don't think I could be writing it without the skills I've learned at the Powerhouse. Like, a lot of the stuff I do at the Powerhouse is not theatre based at all. It's science demonstrations and fast break and workshops, lots of craft activities and things, but it's all of those linking creative content to educational content. So we try and make all of our activities really fun and exciting, but have a foundation in educational content. I think it's those skills that are really helping me now hopefully create a really beautiful, elegant, standalone piece of theatre that has an educational foundation as well. And so it's funny, a lot of the stuff I do at the museum wouldn't necessarily immediately translate into theatre, but actually all the skills that I'm learning do. And there's something great. I do a lot of performances for year 1s and 2s, and doing that forces you as an actor to be really present and keep on your toes, because you cannot switch off for a second, because they know exactly when you're lying, and they're really tactless about telling you when they're bored. So it makes you a much stronger performer, regularly working with those groups as well. I'm looking forward to speaking at Fast Break. I've been to so many. It'll be fun to be on the stage side of things, I think.